What's the turn of the Daily Mirror now? I have been quoting from newspapers throughout the night. I pulled an all-nighter, um, multitasking, doing different things, uploading these videos. This wasn't planned, but I think it's an important issue, and it's about Amazon and its notorious working practices. Probably made a video on this years ago because these reports have been going on for a long time. It's not a new thing. Back in the early 2010s, this was a big issue. And with this year's industrial action on the railways and so on, once again, it's being highlighted. The Daily Mirror is very good at this. The Daily Mirror, to their credit, is very good at highlighting these sort of cases. Um, and it's one of the very rare left-leaning tabloids. But anyway, I'm going to read out this report and then share a few of my thoughts. The report's by Amy Claire Martin. Hundreds of angry Amazon workers have staged a sit-in to protest at 35 pence an hour pay rise. The GMB union said up to 800 staff holed up in the canteen at the online giant's depot in Tilbury, Essex on Wednesday evening and yesterday refusing to work. I should say this is from the 5th of August. One worker who asked not to be named called the increase an insult. Now, the fact that the workers asked not to be named, I think that says a lot, i.e., they're concerned about repercussions. The employee claims staff are treated like slaves and regularly face disciplinary action for taking too much time using the toilet. Staff are added, people have had enough. Why should we do your dirty work so managers can get bonuses? We aren't asking for much, just £2 an hour for the cost of living. 35 pence is an absolute insult. The workers said managers feared similar protests at other sites. Steve Garlick, the GMB's regional organiser, logistics and gig economy, said 35 pence rise worked out to around £2 a day before tax. Frankly, it is barely enough to put an extra bowl of chips on the table, let alone pay for the electricity and fuel costs we are facing. Mr. Garlick added Amazon was one of the most profitable companies on the planet. Household costs spiraling, the least they could do is offer a decent pay. Amazon continues to reject working with trade unions to deliver better conditions and fair pay. Their use of short term contracts is designed to undermine workers' rights. The image the company likes to project and the reality could not be more different. An Amazon spokesman insisted starting pay for the employees will be increasing to a minimum of between £10.50 and £11.45 an hour, depending on location. This is for all full time, part time, seasonal, and temporary roles. In addition to this competitive pay, employees are offered a comprehensive benefits package that is worth thousands annually, as well as a company pension plan. Given what has been reported about this company over the years, I wouldn't believe a word they say in terms of their pitch to fairness. I think this is a company that's so powerful and so big that they can very easily manipulate the narrative. I mean, workers have previously described Dickensian conditions. I remember reading a report which spoke about a pregnant employee. I don't remember the precise details, it was a few years ago now, but this was an pregnant employee and she was penalised for extra time in the bathroom facilities. This sort of draconian approach to workers, I think, reeks of a culture of abuse at this company. Now, it's no secret that Jeff Bezos is one of the richest men in the world. I think he's second only to Elon Musk, and for a while he was first. Kind of those two kind of vie for the top position periodically. But Bezos has astronomical wealth, astronomical. I think it's something like 270 billion. I mean, here's the thing that really gets me. You don't need to be a socialist to see there's something fundamentally rotten about this. I say that because the reason I don't consider myself a socialist is I feel that socialists are anti-wealth for the sake of it, and I don't agree with all the positions on that. Um, but they're not wrong. They're not wrong to point out that there is something very rotten about what is going on in big companies like Amazon. Probably it's not the only one, but it is, I think, one of the worst. Um, and I just think this idea that Amazon as a company and its head, Jeff Bezos, should be untouchable because of his wealth. That's the impression one gets. That I mean, he's never going to face these workers. He's never going to step foot in these warehouses. And I get the argument that he's, the size of this company. You're not going to have, like, for example, you're not going to have. I don't know what analogy to use, but because it's a huge company, he can reasonably visit every factory, whatever excuse they want to cook up for him. I think when there are serious allegations being made, if he had a shred of a moral compass at all, he would be investigating this. It would be in his interest to make a statement on this to really, really do something to alleviate the situation. What's he doing instead? He's engaging himself in space stunts, sending William Shatner up to space and all the rest of it, competing with Elon Musk in these sort of publicity stunts. I think it's a distraction. And honestly, I find it hard to have respect for someone like that who has undoubtedly been successful on a personal level, astronomically successful. He's obviously extremely clever, but I cannot respect someone whose success is built on others' exploitation. Now, people will say, well, if you feel this way, you never buy from Amazon. I don't actually. I did once for a friend because she had a business there and it was a temporary thing. Um, the truth is, ordinary people don't have the luxury of picking and choosing on moral grounds. This is a little bit of a misconception. If we were absolutely pure, I mean, if we this T-shirt probably made in Bangladesh, right? If you really traced every sort of consumerist source, you'd probably have to live in a little hut in the countryside wearing no clothes. Because the truth is, in a globalized world, exploitation is going to be on that chain somewhere. I think it's almost impossible that ordinary consumers totally can free themselves in being complicit to that. I think that we can make the choice to buy things or not, but it's not realistic to just have this sweeping. Well, I'm not going to buy anything, or I'm not going to engage in any sort of services. I just don't think that's realistic. Um, but I do think there's differences between companies. I don't think that they're all equally bad. I think Amazon's one of the worst, and it's just rotten. Now, I think that the government should strengthen labour laws. I think the government should put Amazon to scrutiny, but they're not going to because we have a conservative government. And this is one of my biggest issues with the Tories. They are constantly, perpetually, and institutionally they pander to the rich and powerful, basically, to put it bluntly. I do not see Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss saying this is awful, we'll look into this problem, we'll deal with it. I just don't see them doing that. Keir Starmer should. As leader of the Labour Party, he absolutely should be on the forefront of this. Now, in terms of strikes and union activity, I don't agree with everything. I certainly don't agree with wildcat strikes. And I think the pay situation with unions varies greatly. But again, there's a bit of distortion here from the right because they talk about greedy union bosses, and that may be true. Maybe union bosses are overpaid and therefore they're hypocrites. But I think if we look at Network Rail and we look at other railway executives, and I don't want to digress from the Amazon issue here, but they have colossal salaries, well, much bigger than the people, on a lower level, and microscopic compared to what Jeff Bezos, what his fortune is, but still a lot of money. I mean, they're paid in some cases up to three times as much as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Um, Whatever you think of Boris Johnson, he's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. You have regional directors at Network Rail who are making more than senior ministers of government. I think that's wrong. Um, There's big question marks over that. So this whole narrative about greed, what about their greed? But I think that the world's super rich. I'm not talking about millionaires. I'm talking about super, super, super rich. The Jeff Bezoses and Elon Musks of this world. Especially in the case of Musk, because he's kind of an eccentric character. I don't think they face anywhere near enough scrutiny. I mean, sure, you get people like Bernie Sanders and others, who will, they'll rail against this stuff, and that's good. But I think that there's this idea that because they're so powerful and so successful, well, they must have done something right. And there's this strange reaction that anyone who questions it must be some sort of flag waving commie. I mean, I'm not anti-capitalist, but I think there are aspects within capitalism that need to be held to account. I think there needs to be definitely a strengthening of workers' rights. I think if we look at a country like Germany, I think they handle this sort of stuff much much better. And it's a Western country. It's not a communist state. But generally, the record in other parts of Europe is a lot better on this stuff. Um, so it disgusts me, to be quite honest. And if I buy something from Amazon, I'm a hypocrite for making this video. But here's the thing: I'm just an ordinary guy. The vast majority of us can't can't compete with someone like Jeff Bezos because he's so powerful and so wealthy that he's effectively untouchable. And I think that's wrong. So I think that I gave the Daily Mirror credit for highlighting this stuff, but I think it's not highlighted enough. I mean, by other papers, by news media. I think it needs to be, yeah, really get a lot more attention. And I think senior Tories should be put on the spot. What are they going to do about it? They're the government. They're not powerless to act. The thing is, it's not actually about tax because probably the government would say, oh, but big corporations are already taxed a lot. Actually, this trust wants to lower tax for big corporations to attract investment. But if that investment's coming in the form of this sort of untouchability, I have a big problem with that. And frankly, it's stuff like this that would make me think about voting Labour. There's other areas I'm very uneasy about. I'm uneasy about their attitude to crime and justice. I don't like their pandering to woke politics, but I would expect a Labour government to be much better on this sort of stuff, to strengthen labour laws and to basically be more hardline on these sort of companies. I'm not saying just, become like, say, Chavez's Venezuela, but no, I mean, not that sort of extreme response, but I think that there is definitely a reasonable centre left argument here. Um, and I think it needs to be pushed because it's unacceptable and disgusting that anyone in this country in the year 2022 is treated this way, treated like slaves. I think that's repugnant. So I don't blame them for walking out. Um, they probably know their jobs would be on the line because this company doesn't work with unions. They're taking a real risk. So it's actually quite brave what they're doing. I'm against strikes that hurt other ordinary people, wildcat strikes that, for example, bring the whole transport network to a complete halt. I think that's wrong. But, and some of the Tory candidates were proposing quite reasonable things, but I do think the Tories as a party are they're kind of subservient to the likes of Amazon. I'm not alleging any sort of conspiracy theory. I'm just saying the chances of a senior Tory condemning this is next to nil unless they're put on the spot, in which case they'll probably say, yeah, it's awful. But they'll never voluntarily say that. They'll never voluntarily say, Um, as Prime Minister, I'm going to look into this and I'm going to do something about it. So, what can we do? I think we can be understanding of workers in this situation. I think we can. I don't know. Truth is, there's not much to do really. I could say people could stop buying from Amazon. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Um, some people might even say, well, no one forces them to work there. They can get another job. I hate that sort of dismissive attitude because it's not easy to quit a job and just get another. That's a ridiculous argument. Um, but honestly, this sort of stuff used to really, in the early 2010s, especially when the Cameron government was making all its cuts and so-called big society. I think with Sunak and Truss, it's just going to be more of the same. And frankly, there are times I think we need a Labour government. There's times I think, well, Tories have had 12 years in power now. The last time they were in power, it was 18 years. 18 years. I think it's healthy for government to sometimes change direction rather than have a single party state. So I say maybe it's just a consideration. Maybe it's time for Labour to have a chance. Because Starmer's not Jeremy Corbyn. I don't think he's hard left. Um, neither is Angela Rayner. And I certainly trust them more than Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss on issues like this. Other areas I'm not sure about, but at least on this, I think they would be on the right side. I think the moral compass would be right. I think there's very few Tories that I would trust to be on the right side when it comes to issues like this. I think most Tories would make excuses for it. That's the truth. Call it cynical, but I think they would. It's abhorrent. So for that reason, yeah, I can't respect Jeff Bezos. He's clearly a very, very smart guy, very successful. Is he admirable? I'm not so sure. Let me know your thoughts.